Welcome to the She's All That video podcast, inspiring, entertaining conversations with women doing awesome shit, making change, and living life their way. Conversations that'll leave you thinking, damn, I'm glad I heard that. Today, I'm talking with Caroline Ferguson, award-winning comedy writer, business consultant, cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist, and mindset trainer for business leaders and high-potential entrepreneurs. Caroline helps people dig down to identify their limiting beliefs and behaviors, to blast through their blocks and explode their impact. Keep listening to hear how she does all that, how she uses self-hypnosis in her own life, her upcoming audio pack to help you use self-hypnosis, her bullshit fairy theory, and so much more great stuff to help us survive and thrive in this time of lockdown and pandemic. Get on her mailing list, links are below, for her upcoming self-hypnosis audio pack, and cause she's all that. Caroline Ferguson, thank you so much for joining me today on the She's All That video podcast. I'm so happy to have you here.
I am delighted to be here. So thank you very much for inviting me.
So I've got to ask you right off the bat.
She's all that.
You've done so many things. You're a Renaissance woman. You've been an award-winning comedy writer. You've been a business consultant. And now in your business consulting, you are a mindset trainer, and you are actively using your background in education as a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist.
Yes.
How did you make that journey? And what is cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy?
Well, it all started a very long time ago. I've always had that nagging feeling that I was born for something more. And I didn't really know what that was about. I suspected it was creative. I thought it was being a writer. But when I was a writer, and I'm still a writer, but it wasn't, that itch was not being scratched. I still felt that there was more I was supposed to be doing. I was supposed to be making some kind of difference that just wasn't really happening. And I got to a big birthday, and I was working with a client. And it was a client that I'd done this particular job for 2 or 3 times over the course of about 20 months. And it was like Groundhog Day. And I was sitting on the train on my birthday, one of those big birthdays with a 0 in it. And I just thought, the second part of my life has to be about value that I get and value that I can give. Because what I'm doing now is just not doing that for me. Wow. I have fun when I'm writing. I earn money with my corporate clients, but I still feel as if I was born for something more. So I knew that I needed to find out what that something more was. And there was a chain of circumstances in my life that led me to buy a book on CBT, which is cognitive behavioral therapy.
Yes.
And I knew those initials. I'd heard about CBT, but I didn't really know what it was. And I needed to know what it was. So somebody close to me was about to have it. So I bought a book. And I had, on my birthday on the train, I had said to myself, I give myself a really clear instruction, which was I have to find something that I can do in the second part of my life where age is not an impediment. You know, having silver hair is about wisdom, not about being too old for your job, that I can do alongside writing, that I can do from anywhere in the world, and that is about making a difference to people's lives. And when I bought this particular book, I looked up the author and realized that it was a hypnotherapist that I'd seen in London 15 years before, when I had writer's block. But actually, I was just curious about what it was like.
Not just seen them on a stage, you'd actually worked with them.
I'd been to see him. He was around the corner from me at home.
So you were familiar with hypnotherapy already?
I was, yes. I'd had 3 or 4 sessions of it when I had writer's block. But actually what I was really curious about, what it was like to be hypnotized. That was part of the reason I went to see him. And here he was, and he'd written this book. And he, when I looked him up, I Googled him, and I discovered that he'd set up a college for cognitive behavioral hypnotherapists. Wow. And I didn't really think any more of it that evening. You know, I was excited because I was going to do a writing thing the next day. But I woke up the next morning, and it was very early in the morning, and I was on fire. I was just completely on fire, and I knew what I was going to do. I was going to go to 𝗎𝗍𝑺 College, and I was going to train to be a cognitive behavioral hypnotherapist. That had not even been in my head the night before. And since then, I've learned how that works. I've learned what was going on there, in that I gave myself such a clear instruction. And when we do that, we are addressing our unconscious minds, and we're planting this seed of go and find me this thing and tell me when you've found it. And so ever since my birthday, 2 months later, you know, my mind had basically been sifting through billions of bytes of data, trying to make a match. We're pattern matchers, naturally, trying to make this match. And when I looked up this guy and I found that he'd set up this college, instantly all the counters just clicked into place. Wow. And woke me up at 6:16 in the morning and said, that's what you're going to do. You're going to go to that college. Wow. And I never had a moment's doubt. Not ever. I'd never thought about being a therapist, but I went along. 2 months later, I started my course, And I never looked back. It just was so abundantly clear to me that this was my true north, and this is what I'm supposed to do. I'm supposed to use this.
Was your intention right from the beginning to be utilizing this with your business consultancy?
I didn't really know at that point. I was just following a massive driving instinct. But as I learned and studied, I realized that this was an amazing toolkit, that I was thinking, why don't we all know this stuff? Why don't we all get taught this? Why isn't this what we learn in school? Because when we go to school, we learn how to learn. We learn how to structure an argument. We learn how to absorb information, but we don't learn how to think, not really. And we don't learn about ourselves and how our minds work. And I think that is a massive omission, massive.
Yes. And so when you were telling me earlier in our conversation about the impact you have with people, you said it's to help them develop the crucial life skill of
self-awareness.
Self-awareness. So of course that brings out the question in me is, if this is such a crucial skill for life, for life, successful life, how is it that we somehow aren't getting it? Is everybody lacking in that? And how are we missing it?
Yeah, I talk about the number one life skill of self-awareness. And so many people say, well, I'm self-aware. But actually they're confusing it a lot of the time with self-consciousness. And self-consciousness and self-focus is all about, well, I'm thinking about me, therefore I must be self-aware. But actually there's a wonderful psychological, organizational psychologist, 𝘎𝙪𝙡𝙪𝙡, and has done a lot of study, thousands. She's done thousands of people worth of research into this, and she has come up with this figure of 15%. Only 15% of humans have this skill, which just seems all wrong somehow. But 85% of us don't have it, and I will fully hold my hand up and say I was not one of the 15%.
So this is 15% have it naturally, but it is remediable. It is remediable. We can learn, and that's what you're doing.
And that's what I'm doing. So I had to learn it myself first. And I still catch myself at times, lacking in that self-awareness. But, what is self-awareness? Why is it such a crucial skill? Well,
and one other question I would say is how does it impact our lives if we are not self-aware?
If we're not. Well, the crucial thing about self-awareness is being able to hear our stories. And so we all have this 20 to 70,000 thoughts a day going through our minds on various levels of consciousness. That's huge. I mean, even at the lower level, that's one thought every 3 seconds, all day and all night. And we cannot tune in and listen to all of those because we would slide down the wall pretty quickly. So the key is being able to hear those stories when it matters, because our beliefs and our thoughts determine our experience of reality. So you could have 100 people all going through the exactly same thing, but they will all have a different response to it because they've all got, they all arrived at that place in different ways. But really what's shaping their response to what's going on around them is the story they're telling themselves about that thing. They're going to be 100 different stories.
And how is that impacted by their lack of, or their self-awareness or lack thereof?
So if they are self-aware and they are winding themselves, so for example, take this COVID situation, a lot of people are very disturbed about this, and understandably, it's a very disturbing situation. But how we respond to it is going to vary depending on what story we're telling ourselves about it. So if we're saying, this is awful, I can't bear it, or this mustn't be happening, or this is a terrible situation, then that's going to determine our reality around COVID. We're going to find it extremely difficult. We're going to feel very pessimistic about it. Whereas if our story is, I can't do anything to control what's going on, but I can control me in this situation, or, well, it's not the end of the world, 0.1% of people are dying from this, but the other 99.9% are okay, I'll come out of it. If we have those stories, we're going to have a different reality. We're going to be much more realistic about it, much more resilient to what's going on. So self-awareness, being able to tune in and hear those stories and
direct them
and adjust them.
Yeah.
Challenge them, the ones that are not working for us, challenge those stories and then rebuild them deliberately, consciously, create a new story.
So the example you gave was COVID, but we can be doing this. Of course, that's affecting all of us. But it can be your personal life, your family life, your business, anything really.
And absolutely, we are evaluative. Naturally, humans are evaluative. We have opinion. We form an opinion, a judgment about everything that happens, everything that goes on. And people, there's an awful lot of the kind of coaching fraternity which says, don't be judgmental. We can't help it. We are judgmental, whether you call it an evaluation or opinion or a judgment, that's all the same thing. It is us reaching a conclusion about what's going on. And the nature of those judgments is going to determine how we see the world. And our views determine how we feel emotionally and also how we behave. So if we are able to pick up on views, opinions, judgments that are not helpful to us or not helpful to others, or that are, you know, pinning a behavior in place or pinning an emotion in place, and we can hear that, then that is just so powerful, because we can't change COVID, but we can change how we relate to it. We can change how we behave in it. But you can't do that unless you can hear it.
Yes. So you help the people that work with you, you help them find that self-awareness, and then you apply. Sorry, I keep coming back to the hypnotherapy because it's just so so curiously sexy.
So hypnotherapy, like coaching, is a tool. You know, it's a fantastically useful tool. So what I do essentially is I show people the way to becoming more self-aware, and then we work on very specifically identifying the core beliefs that are getting in their way, that are keeping them small, that are preventing them from making their impact on the world. Because I love working with people who are visionary, who are excited, who want to make that big impact, but they're getting in their own way. And it's always about the beliefs that we hold. And the most toxic kind of beliefs that we have are our demands. This has to be easy. I must do it perfectly. I mustn't let you down. Because the problem is that when we have a demand, there's an or else. You know, I have to do it perfectly, or else it's awful, or else I'm not good enough. I mustn't let you down, or else it means I'm a bad person. So, you know, when we're holding these beliefs, they have consequences for us in terms of how we feel about ourselves and our resilience and our ability to deal with what's going on. So the mindset training process is really about identifying those core beliefs. And that's where the rational emotive behavior therapy that I studied is so valuable. You know, that's what is layered on top of the coaching, if you like. It's being able to hear those beliefs and then having a process, a therapeutic process for challenging and changing them.
Yeah, the therapeutic thing, that element of what it is you do with your clients seems to be a little unique. I've run across a number of people who are mindset coaches, well, not trainers so much. Most people say coaches, but we had also talked before about things you wish people knew about what it is you do. And one of them was that the hypnotherapy isn't all woo-hoo, but also that mindset training is different than coaching. So I have to ask you, Caroline, what is mindset? I particularly in the last 8 months have been seeing so many people that are calling themselves a mindset coach, and like, is it manifesting, or is it just telling yourself like, my life is perfect? Well, what is a mindset? What is it? And what's a trainer or a coach?
Okay, well, mindset, I can only tell you my definition of mindset, because I think I agree with you. There are, you know, everybody's a mindset coach these days, but my definition of mindset is very clear. It is your belief set, so your philosophy plus your approach, your attitude. So it's the beliefs you have plus your attitude and how you approach things. That is your mindset. So at any point, we have a mindset about what's going on. And our mindset might be positive, it might be negative, it might be, you know, it might be helping us to get somewhere, it might be hindering us from getting somewhere. But that all comes back down to self-awareness. It's us being able to tune in to what those beliefs are, what our approach and our attitude is to what's going on. Because if we can hear it, then we can do something about it, we can change it. But I agree with you, there's an awful lot of talk about mindset out there without people really defining what that is. But my version of mindset is really about beliefs plus attitude, and it's not about manifesting, it's not about, you know, spirituality. Doesn't mean I'm not a spiritual person, but it's I take a very pragmatic approach. It's about what's helpful to us and what's not helpful in terms of the stories we're telling ourselves and how we're thinking.
So your pragmatic approach backed up by your therapeutic approach to dealing with your clients.
There is science behind it. You know, there is,
as opposed to magic.
Yes, I study rational emotive behavior therapy, which is all about how the way we think impacts the way we feel and the way we behave. And there is so much information out there, so much research has been done on it. This is a proven therapeutic approach. So I hold myself very much in that space, that this is science-based, this is pragmatic and helpful to people, and it is about being able to build our own self-awareness so that we can be our own mentors, our own coaches, our own therapists, our own trainers.
Be our own mentors. I love that. Okay.
I still have days when I have to, you know, be the client. I still have days when I think, okay, I need to I need to therapize myself on that one. I need to
Mm-hmm.
coach myself through this. So I still have those days, and I think I always will.
It's good to hear from you. So we all feel like, okay, if she does, then it's okay that we do.
Oh, it's a lifelong journey, this one.
Yeah, yeah.
Self-awareness is a lifelong path. Coaching is really, I think, about asking the right questions and getting somebody to, to dig deep into themselves for the answers to those questions. And I think that, that's essentially what coaching is about. It's about holding space for somebody and asking the right questions, which prompts the amazing creative brain to come up with those solutions. Whereas what I do, I certainly use coaching as a tool, but I have a process. I am a trainer. I train people in this process of how to hear the story and challenge and change it. So, with coaching, you're not supposed to do the work for the client.
Right.
I'm teaching the client how to do that, and then I'm holding them accountable while they then get on with it. So it is very much a training process. I use coaching, and I also use hypnosis to help really make sure that we've got the right beliefs, that we've identified the right beliefs, and also to when we're on the kind of the way back up from those beliefs to creating a new story, then using hypnosis can really help to embed that new story and embed the training process so that people have it when they need it.
Okay. Oh, I like that.
And I teach them self-hypnosis as well, because it is such a powerful and valuable tool, so that all my clients learn self-hypnosis as well.
I think at this time, as you had said, we're all grappling with the pandemic and the effects on us. If we had the tools to just even do a little bit of self-modification using self-hypnosis, oh my God, that would be so valuable.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, even just for relaxation, there's relaxation hypnosis, which is amazing for helping you to really release that tension that sometimes we hold tension around our eyes and in our jaw that we're not entirely in control of. We can't actually release that. So hypnosis can really help with getting us to relax at a much deeper level, much more nuanced, subtle level. So, even for that, it's incredibly useful. Never mind all of the amazing stuff that you can do with direct suggestion.
Okay, I'm curious. You've mentioned that we can do self-hypnosis, and you've been doing this for 9 years, I believe.
Yeah, it's about 9-10 years. Yeah.
So I have to ask you, have you been following this for your own self? I think you refer to it as a self-leadership model. Have you been following it with yourself? And if so, what are the outcomes?
I have, and there have been times when I don't, and then I'm forcefully reminded when I miss something really obvious, and I get massively in my own way, and I come back to it. But the self-leadership aspect is kind of the phase 2 of mindset training. The first phase is all about identifying those core beliefs that are keeping us stuck. That are keeping us perpetuating behaviors like procrastination, like imposter syndrome, the things that are really getting in the way of these amazing visionary people who could be changing the world. There are these common aspects that tend to make us feel stuck and playing smaller. And so the first phase is all about, right, let's identify those core beliefs. Let's dig out those stories and challenge and change them. And they learn the process. And then one of my clients a couple of years ago said to me, that was it's life-changing, but what do I do with it now? How do I now take where I want to be and make that happen? And I had been working on something myself, which is the self-leadership aspect. And it's really interesting because I'm such a researcher. Whenever I'm doing anything new or buying a washing machine or whatever it is, I will go and research it to death. But this one, I just didn't. I just listened to my instincts, and I came up with this process, which is based around 4 pillars. And I was really concerned about being influenced by others and possibly unknowingly plagiarizing somebody. So I just put my blinkers on, and I came up with initially 3 pillars. And it was almost there, but I kept tripping over something. And then, of course, I had to laugh my head off because the 4th pillar, the missing piece, was the piece I was the weakest at. So the 4 pillars for me of self-leadership, and we can go and talk a little bit about what self-leadership might be, but the 4 pillars for me are, of course, the mindset piece. And then there is our motivation. That is our why. That is about mission. That's about purpose. That's about I knew I was born for something more. That's that piece. What is that something more? And then we have to get that something more and make it happen and get it out into the world. And that pillar is about momentum. So that's about how we make it happen, how we consistently show up, how we get our vision and turn it into a reality.
Right.
Around that, you've got mindset wrapped, and you've also got the other piece, a crucial piece, which I call maintenance. And maintenance is really about radical self-care and about making sure that we are in the best condition mentally, physically, emotionally, spiritually, to make all of this happen, to turn our why, our purpose, our mission into that amazing impact that we're capable of making.
Yeah.
So for me, it's all about self-leadership in order to really achieve our own radical potential, which I think everybody has that radical potential. We need to be effective leaders of ourselves. So these 4 pillars was my next piece. So that is really about, once we've identified what's stopping us and what's getting in the way, okay, now let's move on. Now that we've freed up that, what one of my clients called the sticky brake, you know, she said it's like trying to ride uphill on a bicycle with the brakes sticking when you've got these limiting beliefs. And now that we're freewheeling down the other side, because we've got that self-knowledge to be able to catch our stories and change them, right, yeah, okay, how do we turn that something more that we know that we were born to be? How do we turn that into impact? And that's where the self-leadership comes in. And I think without any of those 4 pillars, it doesn't really happen.
Yes.
You have to have all 4 of them there.
Kind of like 4 legs of a stool. Yeah.
Yeah.
If one of them's not kind of the same length as the other ones.
Yeah. It's just going to make everything harder.
Yeah. Now, but again, with the bicycle analogy, you know, you're going up, sticky brake, and then you're down. Maintenance is, my thought when you were saying maintenance was that you must maintain this cycle, because it's not like,
yes, you do.
I mean, as you said, it was the very thing that you were forgetting.
Yes.
So we have to keep remembering, you know, like our momentum and
absolutely
our motivation, momentum, mindset, and keep going with it. Yes, it's not permanent.
And the maintenance. And I had the mindset piece, you know, I thought I pretty much had that nailed. I certainly had the something more, the mission, the you know, the motivation bit. And I knew what I was missing in maintenance. So I knew I wasn't doing it as well as I could be doing it. I knew I was missing bits, but at least I knew it was there. But with momentum, I just had this hole. I didn't even realize, you know, that was the missing piece. And when I realized that it was the missing piece, that it's about taking action, it's about consistency, it's about how we create our working rhythms, how we create that accountability for making it happen. I just had to laugh my head off, because that bit has always been the bit, you know, I'm the ideas queen. I don't really care about making it happen. So I had to realize that actually I was never going to be truly effective and truly impactful unless I had that momentum piece in place as well.
So you do that with your clients?
So I do it with my clients, but I've also had to do it with me, because I knew that I couldn't teach this with any integrity unless I was living it myself. So I have been living it pretty much for about 18 months now. And I've been teaching it for the last year. And it's just made a huge difference.
Now, does that, I mean, not to sound like a broken record, but does that also involve the self-hypnosis?
It does, yes. So I've got back into self-hypnosis, and what I use it for is to help me really connect to my vision, to my motivation. And I also use it in the areas where I'm weaker. So I use it for visualizing action, you know, visualizing results, visualizing that momentum piece. But I've also been using it for my maintenance, because I was, I think the word I'm looking for is lazy. I wasn't the world's greatest exerciser, you know. I'd far rather be doing something with words. But I realized that 18 months ago that part of my maintenance program, you know, my self-care, radical self-care routine, had to be about getting myself physically into shape. So I decided that I was going to start small, and I always recommend, you know, baby steps. I decided I was going to walk every day, and I was going to walk every day regardless of weather. So I started out with half a mile. And that was 28th of January, I started walking, and I haven't missed a day yet. And I've done over 1,100 miles, and I've lost 25 pounds. And that daily walk, I'm so fortunate in that during the lockdown phases, I've been able to be near the beach. So I get to walk on a beach every day. And that is my therapy space. It's my creative space. It's where I iron out the knots and the tangles. And, you know, I live in Scotland at the moment. So sometimes going out on that beach, you have to pin your feet to the ground. Otherwise you get blown away. But it's just exhilarating. And I haven't missed a day, even regardless of whether there's a storm out there or not, because I tell myself one thing, which when I look out the window and, you know, it's howling gale with horizontal rain, I just say to myself, today is not the day that I let myself down, that I break my promise to myself. Today is not that day. And then I just get my coat on and I go.
That is so powerful.
It's so powerful. Today is not the day that I break my promise to myself. So I highly recommend, if you're trying to instill a habit, just have that written up where you can see it. And it's been amazing. So yeah, this self-leadership kick has had all kinds of benefits for me. I haven't been this size or this fit or this healthy or this happy in decades.
Wow.
So it's had a huge
Wow.
impact on me.
So overall, the outcomes for your clients, so the people that work with you and or go through your program, what are their outcomes all pretty similar, or are they kind of unique to the person and what it is they're needing?
The nature of the outcome is quite similar in that it is about taking the brakes off, connecting strongly with who you're going to be when you grow up, and then making that happen. So the nature of the outcomes is similar, but the individual, the kind of meat of it, you know, the specific details of what it is that they were born for, what their particular more is, you know, born for something more, that's going to change. But I do tend to attract people who've got similar values, you know, to mine, similar desire to make a difference. So there is a commonality, purely because of the type of people that I like to work with, you know, the common value set, and that desire to make a difference to other people's lives. So while everybody is different, there are definitely themes running through it. Yeah.
So do you immediately recognize those themes?
The first session that anybody has with me is their storytelling session. And it's a 2 hour, 2 or 3 hour, however long it needs to be. It's normally about 2 hours, where they tell me from cradle to now how they got to be who they are. And I can usually start hearing those coming out during those sessions. It's an incredibly therapeutic session, because often it's very rare that we are given the opportunity to tell our story to somebody who's interested and isn't going to judge us, you know, harshly for it, and has our best interests at heart. And that action of telling is incredibly powerful, and it immediately sets the mind going. And our minds, as I say, we're pattern matchers, so we start looking for connections. And people constantly will say to me, oh gosh, I didn't realize that is connected to that, and wow, that must have caused that, and oh my goodness, and they're being their own therapist.
So just that first session with you can be a total eye-opener to your own self.
Hugely powerful.
Wow.
And the moment that people make the decision to experience mindset training with me, that decision itself is therapeutic, because they have made the decision to hand themselves over to somebody else, to trust somebody else to help them, because they no longer want to be the way they have been. They want to, you know, overcome the things that are pinning them in place. They want to move forward. So that decision to work with me is just incredibly powerful for them and therapeutic for them. That's when their own therapy starts, is when they make that decision. And then when they tell me their story and they have a voice and they hear a voice and they're able to make connections in their lives, it starts there. You know, I love the beginning. I love all parts of it, but the beginning is really powerful when you see people.
You said this is a one session thing for the story, and it can be as long as it needs to be, but generally around 2 hours. How long is the duration of say a course of working with you?
Okay.
Generally.
So with the mindset training, actually they're both the same, the mindset training and then the kind of next stage, which is the self-leadership training. It tends to be, I work it to what each client has in terms of availability, but it tends to be that we do 4 half days, what I call the deep dives. We do 4 half days at monthly intervals, 4 weekly intervals, and then in the 2 weeks in between, we have catch-up calls. So they get 4 hours, 4 times, to really dive deep and to really, and it's amazing that every time I think, well, maybe I'll just make it 8 2-hour sessions, something happens which pulls me back to the 4 hours, because we get to hour 3 or hour 3.5 or the final minute, and then this massive revelation this breakthrough happens, that if we were doing it in 2-hour chunks, we might not have got there. And so this seems to be the way that works best for me. But I've really found that those half days, without exhausting us, we get to the heart of what's really going on, and we're able to make massive progress. And now I noticed it's 4 months.
I noticed, oh, sorry. Yeah. Okay. So 4 months. I noticed in myself when you talked about the 4 sessions of deep dives, the half day sessions, obviously something in the way I look at things, I had this voice of like, oh, what would I have to prepare to get the right value for, like, do your clients have to do homework or lay the groundwork for these sessions?
They do. Not so much with the initial mindset training, much more so when we move on to the self-leadership. I have a playbook for each of those 4 pillars, which I ask them to run through, and on the final session that they come up with their plan going forward, their self-leadership plan, what that looks like for them. But in the initial mindset training, there are assignments, but they're much more about, okay, go and practice what we've just what we've just learned, this step that we've learned, this stage, or go and teach it to somebody else. Often I'll say that. Because when they are teaching it to somebody else, they're giving their own arguments in favor of it. And that's a form of self-hypnosis.
And yes. Oh, I was thinking from a pedagogical point of view, that's where you really cement your learning is when you have to teach it. But that's a form of self-hypnosis. That's interesting.
It can be, because when we get immersed in the story that we're telling, we move into a trance state. Now, we move in and out of trance all day. So we were talking about hypnotherapy before, and people are sort of fascinated by it because they've seen stage hypnosis or whatever. It's not that, you know, and people are always saying to me, oh, can you control my mind? Could you make me, you know, run around naked in the streets? Well, I probably could, but I'm never going to, because, you know, I signed up to a code of ethics. Anybody who does clinical hypnotherapy is never going to use those sorts of tactics. And also what you don't see with stage hypnosis is that I think it's 1 in 10 people can be hypnotized to a level of sleepwalking. And in stage hypnosis, what we never see on the TV program is the hours and hours and hours of auditions that the audience has to go through in order to identify that 1 in 10. And they have to sign away their dignity. You know, there's a legal contract that they have to sign saying, you can make me do anything, it's fine. So the mind will protect us. Your unconscious mind's job is to keep you alive. And if your unconscious mind detects danger or humiliation or anything like that that you haven't signed up to, it will not let you go there. So clinical hypnotherapy is very safe. On the whole, it's incredibly safe. You know, I do have a code of ethics. I'm a member of the GHR in the UK, the General Hypnotherapy Register. I have to maintain my training, and I have to keep to certain standards. You know, people can be reassured, can feel confident that I know what I'm doing and that I'm not going to make them feel unsafe. But we go in and out of trance state every day. So when we get into the car and we go off driving and we get out the other end and you think, how the hell did I get here?
Yes.
I don't remember driving. That's trance state. When you're watching The Queen's Gambit, as I was last night, and the hour of that episode just goes by in a flash, or Game of Thrones or whatever it is you're watching, it just goes in a flash. You are in a trance state while you're watching that. So any time that time just magically disappears, you are in a trance state. It's a state of focused relaxation and concentration.
Yeah, and I've heard that, you know, while we're watching TV, that's when our delta wave frequency goes way down, and you're so susceptible to suggestion and ideas.
You really are.
So that's why the advertisers, you know, are shilling their stuff at us. But if you're controlling it, and or you're working with somebody who's helping you control it, you're planting the positive things that you need for the growth you want.
When people are in that delta state.
Yeah. Oh, that's amazing.
But there are different wavelengths as well with hypnosis. So we've got alert hypnosis, we've got very deep hypnosis, and then there's trance state where my client's going, I'm not really in trance, I don't feel any different. And I'm saying, look where your hand is, and their hand is up here, because I've just done an induction, which is all about hand levitation, and telling them that their hand is lighter than air, and there's a bubble, there's a balloon, and they're going, I don't feel hypnotized. And I'm just going, look where your hand is. And they look and they go, oh, so how did that get there?
There's like a duality happening, like they are in this trance state, and yet they're having a conversation with you about not being in a trance state.
Our conscious mind is still trying to have conversations with us. And the more we are hypnotized, the better we get at switching off our conscious minds and allowing ourselves to just go with it, to go with the trance. So your conscious mind is going, but I'm wide awake, I'm fine, there's nothing, you know, I'm not hypnotized. And then their hand is up there because it's being levitated with direct suggestion. So and any kind of hypnosis, I think, if people, even if they do feel that they're conscious through this and it's not really working for them, just go with it. Just allow yourself to stay, because those messages are still going in at an unconscious level. Even though consciously you might be thinking deny, 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 unconsciously it's just going, okay, let's open up and just accept and listen to what's going on here. So I always say to my clients, don't worry if you're not feeling it, just relax and allow this talking to happen. You don't have to know how it works. You don't have to be fully complicit with it. Just allow your unconscious mind to do its thing while I talk. So
you're helping people with this, and I know you've been working with business leaders to do this for years. I myself, and I'm sure people listening to this or watching this, would think, I want a taste of that, but obviously you don't have the capacity or the bandwidth to be dealing with everybody who's interested in this kind of thing. So what can you do for people who maybe aren't your 4-month full session deep work clients? Like, is there a Caroline Light that people can tap into?
There is at times, but there isn't at the moment. I have to be honest about that. And I'll tell you why. It's because part of my self-leadership involved exploring. I needed to explore fully what, my own self-awareness and what was going on for me. And so I did something quite radical. I sold my house. So I'm homeless, and I decided I was going to travel for 2 years around the UK, and I was going to scale right back on my group work, on the courses that I do, and I was just going to work with 12 people. I decided I was going to give myself the gift of this time to travel, to experience, these adventures, to do some writing, and to work at a really high level with the people who move me, who excite me. And in 6 months or a year, I will go back to running group courses and to doing masterminds and to doing programs that people can download. But I don't have those at the moment. But what I do have is something I can give people that will helping them to develop self-awareness. It's just a free download they can have, and I can give you the details of that in a minute. But also, I'm about to create a series of hypnosis tracks, audio tracks, which will be incredibly accessible price point, which people can just download from my website, and they will be around specific topics. So, for example, managing anxiety and imposter syndrome, connecting with your body, the body mindset, which is all about, this is not a bunch of bits I don't like. This is my home for the rest of my life, and I can't move out. How do I heal that relationship with my home? So there'll be one on those, and they'll be incredibly accessible, and people can experience hypnosis for themselves. They won't get the full mindset training, of course, but they get some benefit from that.
Well, my thought is, if it's not out yet, maybe these people should be getting on a waiting list. Like, do you have an email list because down in the notes for both the video and the podcast, we're going to be dropping your links, and can they get on there and get on your waiting list?
Absolutely. I'll make sure that I provide you with a link for that. Why didn't I think of that? That's a great idea. They should be coming out in the new year. So there'll probably be about half a dozen to start with, and they'll be really accessible. But give people a taste of the benefits of what it's like to experience hypnosis.
Yeah, that's incredible.
I promise they won't have embedded sales message.
Okay, we trust you. We trust you.
No, they won't.
So right now you're working with your 12 clients. You're totally booked out. No room for other clients. I go by the quarter, and my my year started, I think, in February or something like that. Anyway, I've just opened up my last quarter, so I've got 4 spaces. In fact, no, I've got 2 spaces because 2 have already been taken by my existing clients who want to go on and do the self-leadership work. So I've got 2 spaces for mindset training, working one-to-one with people. That's the 4 months, the deep dive. Okay. Let's make sure we get a separate link.
Pace myself.
Okay. Yeah, we'll get a separate link in that. And pace.
Paces.
Yes, just quickly. Like you've told me about this before, and this is actually fascinating. Can you give me your?
Yes.
Tell us about paces.
Self-awareness sounds like a kind of an abstract concept. So this makes it a little bit more tangible and a bit more real. The benefits of knowing ourselves. So one of the things I came up with, the tools that I came up with when I was working with my mindset training clients, is I talk about walking people through their paces. And paces is an acronym that stands for the 5 main ways in which we humans wind ourselves up. 5 main ways in which we get in our own way, and which are the drivers for most of the toxic beliefs around I must do that, I mustn't do that, that we tend to have. And it stands for P, is for perfectionism. And perfectionism is really about I mustn't fail. That's the
fear.
I mustn't fail. Or else it's awful, or else I can't bear it, or else it means I'm inadequate. I'm rubbish. So perfectionism, I mustn't fail, I have to do well. A in PACE is about approval addiction, and that can take the form of you must pay attention to me, you must be nice to me, you must notice me, or it can also take the point of view which I had in spades of I mustn't disappoint you, I mustn't let you down, I have to look after you.
Does that include what they categorize as you're a pleaser? A people pleaser.
Pleaser is all about approval addiction. Absolutely. So perfectionism, approval addiction. C in PACES is all about need for certainty, and that is biting people really hard right now. With lockdown, with people going out of business, with lack of support in certain quarters from governments, with who's the president, what's going on in the UK with Brexit, massively triggering need for certainty. I have to know what's going on. I have to know how to do it. I have to know what comes next. I have to know I have all the right gear.
Yes.
And certainly with entrepreneurs, it's a very strong one as well. I have to know how to do the whole sales funnel before I can go out and and make a sale. And so that need for certainty, I have to know who, why, what, when, how, where. And then the 4th one, the E in PACES, is all about ease. Life must not be difficult. It has to be easy. I have to feel safe. I have to feel secure. I mustn't be out of my comfort zone. And it's important to note that not all of us have all of these. Okay. Quite often we'll have all of them at different times, but we all have our favorite recipe of these. So E is for ease.
Yeah.
And S is the one I call self-rule. And self-rule is all about control. I have to be able to control what's going on. We have to do it my way. Don't tell me what to do. And I didn't realize quite how strong mine used to be. Yeah. Approval addiction and need for certainty were the two that bit me the hardest. But now it's interesting, now that I kind of know who I am and can hear my stories and my voices, it's turned much more into perfectionism. I want to do it well. Yeah. And self-rule, I want to do it my way. So I had to actually pull over in the car. I was on the motorway, and I realized that for about a year I'd been getting pretty much road rage. I was getting really annoyed when I drove, and suddenly I was on the motorway and I realized why. It's because there was this voice in my car all the time telling me where to go and what to do, my sat nav.
Oh, triggering you.
And I realized that I was just getting rage because this person in my car, this woman, was telling me what to do all the flipping time. And that just made me laugh so hard. So I just switched off the voice. But I had to realize, a bit of self-awareness there. It took me a whole year to realize that it was the voice in my car telling me what to do. So I know. I have self-rule. I definitely have self-rule going on. But when I say to my clients, when they are feeling disturbed, when they're feeling agitated, anxious, afraid, angry, ashamed, any of those big, difficult emotions, right? Ask yourself, which of my pace's hotspots am I treading on here? Which are triggering me? Is it because I want to do this well and I don't think I can? Is it because I want to know how to do it and I don't know how to do it, the certainty thing? Is it because it feels really far out of my comfort zone? Is it because somebody else is dictating the terms of this? When we ask ourselves that question, which of my pace's hotspots has been triggered? Often it'll be more than one. Then we have information and we know how we're getting in our way, so we can start to think about how we challenge and change those stories that we're telling ourselves.
Back to what you said, the evaluative thing, like it's like it's this and this, and then you can deal with it. Cool.
Exactly. So it's a self-awareness tool that we can use, and it's pretty. Once you learn it, and I've got a handout that people can download about it. Which of my pace's hotspots is being triggered here, and what's the story I'm telling myself that's leading me to feel like this? That's getting in my way.
And I will put the link down below.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Well, Caroline, thank you so much for hanging out with me today and telling me about this. You are definitely one of those people. The She's All About That podcast is about women doing awesome shit. And I have always just thought what you're doing is awesome.
Oh, we haven't even talked about the bullshit fairy.
I love the bullshit fairy. Okay, give me a quick thing on the bullshit fairy.
I love our previous conversations in other areas we've talked about bullshit fairy. The bullshit fairy is that little part of our consciousness that's kind of sits there and evaluates everything about us. And we were talking. I remember you and I were talking about affirmations, and I was saying, well, I tend not to use them because they don't pass my bullshit fairy.
Yes.
So, for example, a classic affirmation might be, I knew somebody who said she would repeat to herself, "I'm healthy, wealthy, slender, and wise." Well, my bullshit fairy would go, "Bullshit. No, you're not." So
it wouldn't even pass the filter.
No, we have to be able to bypass the filter. So we need to be able to work with our bullshit fairy and also to be able to change our bullshit fairy's perspective on things. And that's where hypnosis can really help, actually, because it's a level of consciousness which is there to protect us. It wants to keep us alive.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't believe nice things about us, and it doesn't believe that we're capable of things. So we have to be able to manage our bullshit fairy. And that's what mindset training is all about, is being able to change the nature of that filter, to be able to change how we speak to ourselves. And also to understand at a level of self-awareness, to understand what we can believe and what we can't believe yet. If we're just chanting affirmations to ourselves that we don't believe, it's just going to make us feel inadequate. So I personally don't tend to use affirmations because of that. And we can use the question version, affirmations, which a guy called Noah St. John has come up with. Why am I healthy and wealthy and slender and wise? Now, your bullshit fairy can't disagree with that because it's a question. And when
Right.
we ask ourselves a question, our unconscious mind has no choice but to try and come up with answers. Well, because I'm eating well, or I could be eating well, or I could be exercising, and I could be saving money, and whatever your thing is.
Yeah.
If you pose your affirmation as a question to yourself, and thank you to Noah St. John for this, it bypasses the bullshit fairy, and it engages our creative, problem-solving, solution-focused mind to come up with answers for, right, how is it that I am that? Well, I am that, in an ideal world because I'm taking these actions, because I'm doing these things, because I have these stories. Right, let's capture that and make that part of the plan.
Yeah.
So all little tips and tricks that we can use to bypass our own filters, our own prejudices, our own biases, which is what the bullshit fairy is all about, keeping us alive and all our biases in action, out there.
Yeah. And a little bit, as you said, like as objective as possible. Like your bullshit fairy is not going to let you get away with too much.
No.
Yeah.
And the more self-aware we become, the more our bullshit fairy just shuts up, because we don't really
because we're not feeding it bullshit, so it says nothing to react. That's awesome.
Exactly. Yeah.
So we've got the bullshit fairy and paces and the cognitive behavioral hypnotherapy. Oh my! Like I said, you're tools. A Renaissance woman.
Oh, well, thank you. It doesn't feel like it some days, but there's lots going on, and I'm loving, I would say, most of it. It is fantastic to be able to do this work. Well, thank you so much for sharing it with us today. And like I said, I'm going to put links down below so that people can access your downloads and get on your waiting list. So when you've got that audio self-hypnosis series that you're coming out with, I'll be on your waiting list. I want to have that. And, definitely. You'll have to be a beta tester.
Yes, please. Yes. And if people want to get hold of you, look down below. Caroline, thank you so much.
Thank you, September. I've loved talking to you.
Me too. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for being with us today. Don't forget to take a look down in the notes to find any of the links to the goodies we talked about in today's podcast. And don't forget to subscribe to the podcast or the YouTube channel so you don't miss the next episode. Rate us or review us on iTunes or on YouTube, and share us with a friend that you think might just need a bit of inspiration to start doing her own awesome shit. Do you know an incredible gal that's all that you think the world needs to know more about? Head on over to our Facebook or our Instagram channel and DM me. Tell me about her. We'll see if we can't get her on the She's All That podcast.